Hello, and welcome to Marketing Matters, a forum where we seek to elevate marketing in fresh produce. The truth is, marketing really does need to matter more if we're going to drive demand, sell more fresh fruits and vegetables, and ultimately contribute to the health of our society. Hello, I'm Danelle Macchialmi, President and CEO of DMA Solutions. Thank you for our repeat guest, and certainly welcome to our first time guest. We've been hosting these Marketing Matters webinars since May, and we have an incredible lineup of topics that we've covered since then. You can find those all available on our website under the free resources section. So please take a look at the previous presentations are available to you. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We will share this deck with you. So keep that in mind if you're going to take some notes. Also, we really encourage questions because we really want this to be a discussion. So please put those into the chat or the Q&A and we'll address those as soon as I walk us through kind of teeing up the topic for us. But we've really found since we started this webinar series, just great value, not only for us, but in the exchange, because that's what we're seeking to do here is to really work together as marketers to progress our industry. And so that comes from thoughtful discussion, and questions are certainly a way to get that going. So appreciate that consideration as we move through the deck. And with that, I'm going to turn off the video for now and walk us through this information and then look forward to discussion on the other side. Thanks again for joining us. We still have a few folks signing on, and while everyone's jumping on, we have a couple of excellent presentations on the horizons that we're very excited about. On November 18th, you will not want to miss our discussion about the role of sales and marketing in fresh produce. We believe there is so much untapped potential when sales and marketing are in alignment. And in order for this to happen, we really need to look at where the roles have been, and most importantly, where the roles should be today. With sales being inherent to our perishable industry, we need to really understand how that role needs to, how it should align with marketing. And traditionally, they've been somewhat separated in many cases. So we're really excited to bring that to discussion and explore it. And we'll hopefully, mostly marketers have been on these webinar calls, but we definitely hope you invite your folks from your sales team to that particular webinar, and we'll send out more information on that. And then on December 10th, we'll be discussing marketing realities for 2021, because boy, if 2020 has taught us anything, we've got to really think through, how we're going to approach this next year and really look at the opportunities that are ahead of us. So we'd love for you to join these two. These will be our last two webinars of the year. You have to register for them separately, and you can do that on our website. Just click the link at the top of our homepage to register. As always, and this is in particular for the new folks on our webinar today, we'd love for you to subscribe to our blog, The Core. We produce marketing and industry information on there 3 times a week and email you once a week to let you know what's new. And it's a great resource for a lot of how-tos and also our opinions and feedbacks on things that are happening within the industry. So with that, our topic today is maximizing your marketing budget. And before we share our recommendations on doing just that, let's touch base on how marketing budgets are determined, because I think that's an important part of this journey. And so starting off with the question, how is your marketing budget determined? And it's something that, marketing budgets are determined in several different ways, and really each company has their own method. But generally, the methods are that you're either having input based on your budget, based on the activities that are working. So you're helping to guide what that number is. And or the most typical thing that we see is there's an arbitrary number that's been predetermined. So meaning that the company's just accustomed to spending whatever the dollar amount is. And that's been traditionally what they've done. And it may move up or down here or there, but it's really based on really what I would consider opinion or guesses. So, and we've seen a lot of different approaches the last 16 years. And what I will tell you, working with over 100 brands, is that no matter how it's determined, what we don't want to do is we don't want your budget to be a guesstimate. So, because what we're doing when we do that is setting ourselves up for frustration and failure. That being said, if that's the current state and that's the current way that your budget's being determined, what we need to do is find ways to maximize that spend so that we can showcase the capability or the results of the activities that we have to spend so that we can garner the opportunity for more. And because again, having worked with all the budgets that we've worked with out there, what I will tell you is we've never ran into an unlimited one. And we've most often started with smaller budgets and found ways to perform and to help marketers gain more marketing dollars based on performance. So again, most of the budgets we start out working with are small. Um, when thinking about budgeting, just to make a point here, when thinking about budgeting for 2021, there's some very stark indicators of things that we need to, be thoughtful about. And there have been a lot of changes in 2020 that have kind of shaken up our space as marketers. In addition to the trade shows and other major events still being up in the air in 2021, regular travel visits to customers is most likely on hold. So how can we be smarter with marketing dollars that might have gone toward those expenses? For example, if a trade show is canceled, we're saving that money by maybe that we were going to build a new booth for. We can reallocate those dollars to videos or graphics or other things to improve your digital presence with customers. And then the other key point, considering for 2021, if that is your fiscal year, digital is no longer just for reaching consumer audiences. And with the shift in travel, the opportunities for fresh produce industry to use digital to better reach customers have become glaringly apparent. So we need to be budgeting for and planning for these assets we are going to need to better reach and nurture our customers, quite frankly, from afar in 2021, as at least the indicators that we're seeing now. So with that, we're going to tee up our first poll question. Have you already determined your marketing budget for 2021? I think that'll help us set the course for the conversation. One more minute there. All right, I'm going to show the results here. So we can see here that the majority of you have not set your budget. So this is going to be a great, hopefully a very helpful, I should say, webinar for you today, because we're going to give you some things to think through. And then you're still working, a large majority of you are still working on, while your budget's been set, working on the marketing plan to support that. Okay, great. That's very helpful. Oh, great. So with that in mind, again, how to approach the budget, I think that's something as marketers that we're going to be working on, at least in this industry, for quite some time. So just again, continuing to find ways to put actuals around what you're based on activity and based on outcomes is something we should be constantly striving for. All right, we absolutely love this quote by our favorite Seth Godin. And basically, if you're a marketer marketing from a fairly static annual budget, you're viewing marketing as an expense. And good marketers realize that marketing is indeed an investment. And if you follow us at all, you've probably seen some version of that quote being used quite a lot. And during our last Marketing Matters webinar, what your CEO needs to know about marketing, you heard us speak to this, because the reality is that when your marketing is effective, it is an investment. And if we really do want to start maximizing our marketing budgets, we need to shift our thinking from valuing marketing to valuing marketing as an asset rather than expense. And that's going to take some time, and that's a journey that we're on together. But it's up to us as marketers to really start to showcase marketing as an asset rather than expense. And I mean, we know how this goes. Basic accounting rules require that marketing costs be listed as an expense on the company's P&L. So for the decision makers in our companies, it's just easy for marketing to be seen as an expense. And we've all dealt with the reality of, man, when something goes awry, marketing is one of the first things to get cut because it's seen as many times an arbitrary expense. And it's up to us to change that. And that's some of the things we're going to talk to today. But we do definitely know that the progressive companies, the companies that are looking to grow, they are considering marketing more so as an investment because it drives revenue, and seeing it as a revenue driver rather than a cost. We see marketing as an investment in your content, your communities, and your connection with buyers as the asset. So keeping that in mind, again, when we're thinking about marketing budget, these are some higher level ideals around budgeting that we need to keep in mind, that we're going to, again, trying to shift in this industry. These are some of the aspects of that. So aligning your marketing budget with sales, in our opinion, that's the ultimate goal, is that if marketing is indeed going to become an investment and to be seen something other than a cost, it needs to be aligned with sales. And you've heard us talk about this a lot, and we know this to be true, that CPG brands, they're known for their stellar marketing, but really their marketing in what they're able to do comes from the fact that their budgets are determined as a percentage of revenue and or sales. So it fluctuates based on what the sales of the company is doing. And so I think that is a clear difference between our reality over here in fresh produce and what's happening in the CPG world, is that they're determining their marketing investment based on their sales. And so if you really think about it, and you can see the numbers here, and we know to be true that definitely on the CPG food side, that they're spending anywhere from 7 to 18% of their annual sales. And I think all of us could agree, we've ran into very few marketing budgets the last 16 years that even eclipse 1%. So again, I think that, and we know to be true, if we don't need to spend necessarily the 7 to 18% of our sales that's being spent in CBG, because they have a much tougher sell, quote unquote, sell than we do. And in fresh produce, because of the halo that surrounds our products, if we could just get to the 1 to 2%, I think we'd make a huge significant difference in our industry. So that's, again, this is kind of goal setting and aspiration, this piece of what we're presenting here. But I think it's important for us to align our ideals with really what marketing and how marketing budgets should be determined, and that they should be aligning with sales. And so again, at the end of the day, our marketing efforts are building awareness and interest from our audience, whether trade or consumer. And what we have to keep in mind is that marketing is creating touch points that turn prospects into buyers. And for that reason, if at all possible, we believe that marketing spend should be determined based on the percentage of sales you bring into your company. And so again, if we're not quite at the level, do we really need to be there? But what we do need to do is definitely shift the percentages higher in our company. So with that, let's tee up our second poll question. Let's just see where we stand as a group here. How is your marketing budget currently determined? One more minute here. All right, I'm going to end the poll. And I doubt these results are a surprise to anyone on this call, which again reiterates, I think, the huge opportunity that we have in this space. And I know many of you attended the virtual Fresh Summit, and this was a big topic of conversation: is what do we need to do differently in this industry? We certainly talked about it in our last session when we were talking about what CEOs need to know. And if we really are going to move the dial, we're going to need to get into this practice and this frame of mind of tying our marketing activities back to sales and revenues for the company in order to really make a long-term difference, quite frankly, in this space. But I am encouraged that 55% of you answered it grows as the company grows, but we have to make a case for it. And that's okay, because never before have we had the opportunity as marketers to make a case that our activities can, tie back to the results of the company and or sales. So that's great to hear. And so again, not surprised that 27% are showing that the budget is an arbitrary number. And quite frankly, I would say probably 10 years ago, that number was well eclipsed, over probably 50, closer to maybe even 60% of the companies that we were working with at the time. So okay. All right, so now we're going to lead into the 5 critical ways that we think you can maximize your 2021 marketing budget. Obviously, 2021 has some interesting twists to it because of what we just lived through in 2020, but some really encouraging opportunities for us as marketers, indeed. So, what is the objective? I think starting here, first and foremost, as a marketer, we need to ask ourselves, as a company, what are we trying to achieve? And when we're working with companies who, you know, are thinking about their spend or their marketing investment or their marketing activities, and especially when I'm having conversation with decision makers out there, it's, if you don't have marketing, if you're not investing in any way to elevate your name or your brand to the audiences that you're trying to sell to, no matter who that is, I mean, you pretty much have relegated yourself to a commodity. And meaning you're going to sell your products for whatever the market will bear, and you might have a web presence, maybe not, you might have a logo on a shirt or a cap, but really you're there to move product through the system, based on what the market will bear. And that's the history of our industry and how we've evolved. But I doubt anyone here is looking to really improve their commodity status, so we'll move on from there. I think, and then the next kind of realm that we have seen take shape is that, and when it comes to spending marketing dollars, is, are you trying to further your trade name or build one? And you can determine that. Obviously, I think a lot of this needs to be discussed with your leadership team. Is, look, if we have this much money to spend, are we trying to just really solidify and or build our trade name? Because what ends up happening and what becomes a challenge for marketers is you have this set number that you're expected to spend. Meanwhile, you're hearing messages from the decision makers at your companies. And again, I'm not suggesting that you're not in that room, but you're hearing, we want to have a greater consumer presence. Well, that's going to certainly require a different plan, and or certainly definitely more dollars, or in a different set of dollars. And so, but I think it's good to have this conversation to understand what really gets your leadership team, where is their focus? Do they desire to be a company that's everywhere in the trade show exhibit hall, for example, or on the cover of trade publications, digital ads? If the answer is yes, we definitely need to keep budgets, dollars allocated to building and strengthening our trade name, because that is something that we need to be doing in order to get in front of the buyers that make the decisions about our products to get on the shelves and or plates. And also now many of us are tasked with the objective of becoming and or strengthening, or really mostly in this industry, becoming a consumer brand. And so then we have to know we have to really understand and be able to communicate to our companies that brands behave differently than trade names. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles we have to overcome, is to be able to explain that to our decision makers, how brands are different than a trade name. Because what ends up happening is, oh, well, this worked on our trade. We were able to build a formidable trade name or a trade brand. We'll just replicate those activities over here with the consumer, and we'll spend roughly the same amount. Well, that's just not the case. And we all know that. So we have to find ways to elevate that reality to the decision makers that we need to be educating. And so, one way to really think about that is, in order to really build a successful brand, we must work more with a strategy to establish shopper preference and trust on repeat purchases. That's one way that we can clearly illustrate to our decision makers the difference between a trade brand, a consumer brand and a trade name. And then as a result, the budget needs to be reflected in those two areas. So what we're recommending here is to really think through this positioning of your company, and then seek to find dollars that, for most of you on the webinar today, and most of us out there, we're seeking to do both. Unless you're a service company and you're primarily B2B, but most of us with fresh produce products today, we're seeking to some degree to do both. And we need to separate in terms of how we get there, rather from our activity standpoint and our plans, and also from the budgeting standpoint. So let's tee up another question here. So which of the following best describes the objectives you are aiming for in 2021? All right, let's end this poll. So you can see we are split down the middle. So most likely we are, again, seeking to do both, or we're focused in one area or another. So it's helpful. Thanks for that input there. All right, so if marketing is indeed going to be an asset for our companies, I think we have to consider also that a well-rounded marketing plan to include both qualitative and quantitative activities are critical. And we believe that successful marketing is measurable, but this doesn't only refer to ROI, which is a phrase we often hear as marketers, right? But at the same time, while we're all for the value of marketing activities that produce measurable results, and we'll talk more about that in a second, there's also a place for marketing activities that are more qualitative in nature. And if you think about it, quantitative marketing activities like ad campaigns, coupon programs, trade shows, these activities exist solely to create sales. And we work very hard as marketers to tie those activities back to sales. And because these activities can be tied to tangible results. And the good news is, as I mentioned earlier, there's never been more marketing activities that we can measure than what we have available to us today. So that's playing into our favor. It's how we turn those measurements and those results into a mindset change, if you will, for our companies. And relative to qualitative activities, like your website, for instance, content creation for recipes, photos, work with influencers, or even organic social media efforts. These activities are all about fostering brand awareness and loyalty. And that's critical, especially if you're trying to build a consumer brand. And these think of them as basically purchase incentivizers. They can serve as the foundation for the quantitative activities. And often they can be seen as, soft activities, or do we really need that type of thing? And the reality is yes, because they set the foundation and they correlate directly to our ability to deliver the qualitative results from, I mean, to be able to execute qualitative activities. So they both are extremely important to marketing today. And so we want to make sure that when we're looking at our activities that we understand what we can measure, but the things that maybe don't have a direct tied measurement to them, that doesn't make them any less important to our marketing journey. So I think it's important for us to tee up those realities when we're setting our marketing spends for our fiscal years. Next, we recommend a prioritization of your activities. So to start, which activities are most essential to your growth and reaching your 2021 goals or differentiating your company from the competition? And, for instance, are you launching a new product in 2021? Or is it time for a website refresh? You need to budget for these types of initiatives or assets in order to be successful. This is where knowing the objectives comes into play. The spend and the activity needed to support a new product launch for a company focused on being a trade name looks very different than a company who wants to behave like a world-class consumer-facing brand and launch a product. So again, if you want to launch a product and just let your buyers at retail, for instance, know about it, that's a different marketing strategy and spend than if you want to roll out a new product. And while letting the trade know, certainly let consumers know to create that demand. And so if you're not sure how much something costs, rather than make a guess, we definitely recommend that you find estimates in advance so that you know what to budget for. And we say this as a bit of a cautionary tale, and we live through this reality frequently, is that what we see happen a lot, say for instance with packaging or website design, brands set aside a certain number in their budget and it turns out not to be aligned with their expectation for the asset. So they may say, we want to build a world-class website that does all of these things and has all of this functionality, and we want to spend $10,000 on it. I'm just throwing out a number. That's probably not a realistic goal. And so sometimes instead of, saying this is what we want to spend, let's clearly understand what we want the website to do, for instance, and then let's get some quotes and then let's prioritize what we're able to do is basically what we're saying here. And we recommend creating a priority rank system. So rank your priorities to understand which activities are most important to driving impact, and then you can adjust. What do you absolutely need in 2021 to reach your goals? And then what would just be nice to have? Like, you need it, but is it the absolute priority? And to really be able to understand which activities fall into which buckets, if you will. So, and we also recommend that this is a helpful exercise to really review your budget quarterly, because if anything in 2020 has showed us anything, that priorities can change. And for a lot of us, our priorities on our marketing spend did change. And we'll talk through that in a second. And we certainly recommend, relative to prioritization, is to develop a contingency plan. And recently we've started creating an if we can section of our budget for our clients to separate from the primary budget so that we can be more nimble and ready to adjust based on increases or decreases. For instance, you might budget for a new website in 2021, but for whatever reason that priority gets shifted. Let's be ready to divert those dollars into other activities that we, if we do have the dollars, that we would go into invest. And that could be anything from content to videos. And I mean, the fact is, and I keep mentioning content and recipe creation and photography and videos, is because as marketers, we need more of those assets, and it's a never ending basically activity and spend that we need to be investing in. So that's something that we can always divert dollars to, for example. So once you have your priorities nailed down, we recommend certainly setting SMART goals. And we typically include these with the marketing budgets that we help create and manage, because it keeps everyone on the same page And it certainly helps you to answer the question, what does success look like for marketing in 2021? And so your efforts will be a lot more victorious if you know what success looks like. Examples of SMART goals, just to name a few: Facebook followers you'd like to have by a certain date, or the average amount of web traffic that you know you need in order to convert um, conversions to hopefully your coupon that's available, or your product locator to help drive sales. For instance, the number of clicks you receive on a trade newsletter. Setting those specific goals are critically important. And then the most important thing that SMART goals allow us to do as marketers is that it allows us to communicate these goals with our sales team and decision makers, because so that we can gain their buy-in on our marketing activities. Um, in other words, let's not only share the results, let's not just be a squad that says, look, we reached this particular goals, but let's use these goals as a way to educate and showcase how our marketing efforts are leading to and supporting sales. And so again, it's part of that education process. And we use the term at DMA, the path to purchase. And so being able to educate our sales and decision makers in our organization about how particular activities, whether they're quantitative or qualitative, lead to the ultimate success for our companies. And when I say sales, sometimes it's not a direct sell of our product, but it could be a meeting with a retailer that we were trying to garner, or, and you fill in the blanks. But it ultimately, those type of our activities should lead to those types of outcomes for our company. So not quite sure where to start here. Let's try by asking a poll question and we can dive into this a little bit more. So the next question is, how do you want your marketing budget to work for you? These are the questions really, and that we encourage you. This is certainly a question that we encourage you to tee up with your C-suite. And maybe at times it's not even a question, but how you're you're leading the discussion with the decision makers at your organization by saying, this is what we want our marketing to do for our company, whether that's a trade name and or consumer brand. This is a little bit of a lengthy one. All right. So you can see here that 58% of you are looking to increase your brand awareness. And, brand awareness is certainly one of the, the qualitative measurements that we look to. So again, as we have to find different ways to illustrate how we are increasing brand awareness. And that's where SMART goals can certainly help us by doing that. And I can see here the brand loyalty. That's another interesting way that I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of being able to showcase how consumers and or our buyers are loyal to our company and our brands. Right. All right. Next, we wanted to just show you, this is mainly a frame of reference just to kind of give you a little look behind the curtains about how we can help our clients really think through the different levels of spend, because our reality today is there's more activities in our marketing than there has ever been. And so sometimes when we're relegated to a set number, a dollar number, we have to really think through all the different ways that we are going to need to allocate those dollars. And sometimes that backing into that number can come from a very simplistic exercise of creating a calendar of planned activities. And I know this can seem pretty just at surface or value here, viewable value, it looks pretty simplistic, but this really does help us, because one of the things that we see most common is that we forget to allocate for a particular activity that's going, that's definitely going to need to occur if we're going to meet our objectives. So this is also a great way to sketch out and then go back in and assign certain SMART goals to these activities. But this is, again, another recommendation that we have as you start to shape your budget and really try to maximize it. Because if we all have limited spends, right? So none of us have an unlimited spend. With that reality, we need to allocate our dollars. And like we said, create a prioritization, but then also build in a little bit of flexibility to, if in case, in many cases, we'll see activities, and we'll give you a great example of that, where one of our marketing activations or areas that we're investing in starts to really take off and we see immediate results. We need to have some flexibility to be able to put dollars toward that. Alternatively, if we see an area of our marketing that's just not performing like we want, or that we think it should, we can pull back in that particular area and move forward. These simple calendars and laying out these planned activities for the year, whether that be for a promotion or for all of your activities, can be a great way to help you navigate your marketing plan and budget through the year. So in summary, these are the 5 recommendations that we have for you when it comes to maximizing your dollars. Consider your company's position and objective. You do want to be a trade name, a consumer brand, or both. Establish both quantitative and qualitative marketing activities and use that as a way to educate your internal teams on the importance of both by putting them into these different areas and showing how they interact and work together. Certainly prioritize spending, set SMART goals, and create a calendar of planned activities to help you shape your spend throughout the year. So those are our recommendations. And one of the things, one of the key takeaways from this webinar that we want you to help tee up for you to think about your budget differently in order to maximize it is that I've said it, everyone on this webinar has a different budget. Everyone in this industry, we haven't met an unlimited budget, and we certainly haven't met any 2 budgets that look the same. So everything that we're sharing with you can be sized down or up based on your needs and where you're currently at with your company. So what we're trying to do is help you think through your budget differently and more effectively. And if you're a marketer that worries that your budget isn't big enough, you're not alone. Let's consider how we can use the budget on stealthier, smarting marketing strategies so that you're able to clearly showcase the value and make a case for more marketing dollars, because that's what we're ultimately trying to do, is to create activities and strategies that we're able to showcase so that we can garner more dollars. Because we all know on this call, we all know that it's going to take more marketing dollars to increase demand of fresh produce. We know who the competition is. We know how much they're spending. We know that they're utilizing marketing to grow their sales for their junk food products. So we know that. We have to keep validating and educating our decision makers in this industry and giving them more concrete, more specifics around how that can happen. So we believe that quality over quantity philosophy here. It's the way you're spending your dollars that to us is most important and where you should really start. So for example, if you spend $5,000 a month on social community growth, but see really low engagements, you can easily make a stronger impact with $500 budget and the right strategy. By the way, if you have $500,000 a month to spend on social community growth, please give us a call because that is a lot of money to spend, but it's happened and we see it. We know that it's happening. But at the end of the day, if you're spending just to grow without engagement, really how is that an asset to your company? So that's just again, an easy example. But at the end of the day, what we want to illustrate in just the next couple of slides before we go into discussion is that an effective strategy really should supersede the size of your budget when it comes to it. So let's work with what we have and be more effective with that versus just focus on the fact that we don't have as much money to spend as we'd like to. So with that, we have our last poll question. I want to tee that up. So what have you found most difficult when it comes to establishing your marketing budget? All right, so let's show these results. Okay, so we have a tie between ROI and benchmarks for success, and quite frankly, they really go hand in hand. So I, can see where this might be a little bit of a tough place to put your answer, but I can see here that we have 36% building a case and management about additional marketing spend. Again, those three things really tie together because we need to have benchmarks and we need to have measurements because building the case to management, we need that in order to really change mindsets around what we should be spending on marketing. So this is extremely helpful, and we certainly utilize these poll questions to help us shape content on our blog and certainly to help shape future webinars that we'll be hosting in 2021. So thank you. Your answering these questions is very valuable to us and really helps to shape so that we can be more helpful to you. All right, we want to give you 3 examples here of, let the poll pop back up, give you some, I went backwards, didn't I? All right. So the next 3 slides are examples of effective marketing strategy specific to social media performance. And so this first slide is, this is an example that, and proof, quite frankly, that the pandemic has created an even richer environment for online engagement. So this chart showcases the performance of 3 of our clients, specifically on Instagram this summer. So the key point here is that we did not drastically change our spend for any of these clients. We adjusted our content to be more relevant to the current situation with COVID. What we saw was a clear value of being present and relevant to shoppers, and how having content that resonates with our audiences can definitely boost performance. And so in short, the pandemic has not stopped growth. In fact, it has fueled it. And we're finding that growth, engagement, and general activity on social media across the board is at an all-time high. So again, this is a great example, one that we saw firsthand, is that the strategy, we didn't change the spend here. So it was the fact that we altered the strategy to be more relevant, and we were rewarded with incredible results and continue to be so 9-10 months into this pandemic. So that's again a wonderful silver lining for fresh produce. Another point to make here with that is some wonderful opportunities for us. It's also a reality is that CPG is certainly committed to growing their digital spend, and so and this is a direct result of consumer behaviors during the pandemic. So we're seeing a lot more online activity from people, whether that's going to social media for information, certainly online shopping. I mean, I don't think any of us are not aware of our behaviors as a society relative to this pandemic. So this shouldn't be of any big news other than the fact that knowing that CPG is realizing the opportunity at an even higher rate with social media advertising, fresh produce marketers need to be aware that there could be more competition for us in the digital ad space. So that's been a space that we've traditionally been able to really go in and maximize low cost per activity and engagement, for instance. So we need to kind of keep an eye on that. We may have to increase our dollars somewhat in 2021, but this is another example of navigating our strategy and knowing and foreseeing what could potentially come our way so that we can be prepared. Another example is, part of building an effective strategy is really boils down to considering where you're investing your spend. And in this particular slide, the team has teed up that Facebook and Instagram continue to dominate when it comes to social media platforms, but where marketers focus time and dollars, obviously that's where the dollars are going. But for those of you who said you'd like to build a stronger trade name in 2021, this is an indicator, a signal for you. LinkedIn is a place for fresh produce brands, where we should be focusing more of our time and attention. If we're looking to increase our trade awareness, and you want to engage more of your buyers online while face-to-face is restricted, LinkedIn is an untapped opportunity that this graph is illustrating. So many fresh produce brands have not dedicated significant dollars to advertising on LinkedIn that we've seen. So this is yet another effective suggestion we have relative to your strategy that you should be considering for 2021. Again, we just took one aspect of our marketing here and to illustrate to you how we can be aware of the trends that are happening and we can make adjustments, but we can also look at our marketing activities, what is really working, and adjust that strategy midstream and be able to reap benefits and results from that. So let us leave you with one final point of consideration to maximizing your budget before we move on to the Q&A. We really can't stress enough the importance of reporting up to reporting with your decision makers and your sales team, and quite frankly, your organization, about how your marketing is doing. And, it's not just about the big wins and the small win. The small wins are important too, because what we want to do is share our activity, and keeping it top of mind with the leadership team. It tends to make next year's request, or the fact that we know we need more marketing dollars, a lot easier when we're educating them about what these marketing metrics mean. Because I think many of us are sharing our results, but it can fall on deaf ears. Well, why is that? Because much like if you were to start talking, for me as a marketer, when food safety people start talking, I understand some of it, but I don't understand all of it. And I think as marketers, we tend to take what we know about our marketing activities as being something that everyone should understand because it's second nature to us. But what we need to do is turn our success and our results. We really need to think about our audience that we're speaking to, whether that is decision makers, the C-suite or the CEO, and or whether it's our sales team. So thinking about where their mindset is and really using I guess, for lack of a better word, language or words that they can easily understand, and really tying back our activities to the overall company's objectives. So I think that's critical. And we wanted to definitely make that point before we headed on to the Q&A. So with that, we are now going to invite questions and discussions. I see that some are being teed up, and I'll invite the DMA team. Please mute yourself or turn off your video if you don't wish to be on camera. We are going to stop sharing the screen, and we can certainly bring you forward if you'd like to have a discussion with us virtually, so face to face. We'd love that. But if not, just put your questions in the Q&A and we will take it from there. So with that, I'm going to turn my video back on and stop sharing the screen. And here we go.
All right, I see George has his hand raised, so I'm going to allow you to talk real quick, George, if you want to ask your question.
Okay, I just unmuted myself. How's it going?
Hi, George.
Great value, by the way.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said great value. I really enjoyed.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's good to kind of get some insight. And
all the kudos go to Mackenzie and the team. They worked tirelessly to put this together, and so I think I thought the content was great too. So I'm glad that you agree.
Yeah, no, it was really helpful. I was taking some screenshots because we actually just got our budget approved today, which was the timing was kind of crazy. But yeah, I definitely, I had some questions as far as, I know if you're grower, packer, shipper, and you're looking for all the buyers, but for someone like us that, we're in the service-based B2B, as far as, the measurement, what do you guys look to as far as for, not a sale, but for us, it'd probably be just in get in front of somebody. That would be kind of the key metric to kind of measure, I guess.
Well, we can speak to this firsthand, George, because we're in the same boat. We're a service provider selling to probably this very similar group of audience that you're selling to, completely different things. But what I would say is, we do exactly what we shared with you here. We really try to look at what's our quantitative expenses and what are activities, and what are our qualitative, and assign dollars to both. And I mean, it starts with what are the outcomes that we want for our company in 2021, and then backing that into our marketing activities. And, last year, I can tell you that we spent 6% of our revenues on marketing at this company. We allocated that much to it. And so I think, again, looking at that, now we didn't always do that, but we've worked to get to that certain, to get to that strategy level. I think, and I'll certainly let Mackenzie and Marcy chime in on this, but I think the other thing is what we tend to do with our marketing is we feel like we have to reach the entire audience. We have to fish in the big ocean. And what I would recommend is that we fish in the pond of the folks that we know we need to reach most, and we put our activities around that, and in our spend around that. And so that's what I would recommend if you're looking for a tactical place to start, is who do we need to reach most? And in your case, that's potentially current clients that you want to grow with. Maybe you have new things you want to illustrate with your software and the product that you're selling, and or who are who else would you like to attract into your portfolio. So that's where I suggest starting. Mac, Marcy.
Sorry, I was muted. I think that was very well said. I mean, I know for you, George, it's thinking about, I think of the slide we have about quantitative versus qualitative. For you, a lot of your activity is going to be quantitative, just because of the nature of what you're selling. But I think that there is a ton of room for you to be thinking about how you can maximize those qualitative activities that are going to help you get in front of more people so that you can execute something that's more quantitative. So for you, it's thinking about, more public relations work, more editorial with the trade press. Like, how can you get your name out there more? And that can't necessarily be measured in quite the same way as like maybe an ad campaign might, which I know ad campaigns is also something that you're going to focus on, LinkedIn as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, I just shot you guys an email right when I was watching this, just to kind of see when we can get together and figure out what we can do either for the remainder of this year and then also next year.
Right.
Right.
We certainly need more of your product in our industry to make us more efficient. That's for sure. So thank you, George. Any other questions or?
I see that Tim has his hand up. So Tim, I'm going to allow you to talk and let you ask your question. Oh, did Tim go away? Oh, I think we lost Tim.
Oh,
I don't see him anymore. All right. Well, maybe he'll hop back on here in a minute. I saw a chat, a private chat from someone who's struggling with what we know a lot of you are probably struggling with, is how do I make a case to my leadership team when they don't view marketing as an asset? Like we said, they view it as an expense. So how can a marketer go and have that conversation with a leadership team who's quite frankly not ready to buy into that way of thinking?
Well, that doesn't just happen. So that's a series and I mean, that happens, going to have to happen in a million tiny steps. So I think let's start with, because that's changing a mindset. I mean, we've said it a million times. I mean, produce is going to sell without marketing. And so owning that and knowing that reality is extremely helpful for you to tee that up. But without marketing, we are going to be beholden to selling our product for whatever the market's going to bear, because that's the case. Now, if you look, and we spoke to this, is that certainly there's a big case, and I think it's easy for decision makers to understand the value of trade marketing, right? Like there's hardly ever a question on whether or not we show up for a trade show, or do we need to advertise, for instance. So we've come a long way, but I think where we've kind of gotten a little stuck in some cases is that's what they view marketing as, is showing up for a show, or packaging, or just some, definitely some significant parts of our marketing arsenal, but not anywhere near the total suite of things that we have to do to be effective. So I like to start with, what if we don't? Are we okay with that? Are we okay with the outcomes? And so, that's not a conversation that I recommend that you just cruise by and, plop that question down. I mean, that's more of a strategic discussion, but I think it really starts with a thoughtful conversation between you and the decision maker or makers. Where do we want this company to go? Where are we trying to get to? What does success look like for the company? And then you are going back and you're tying your activities directly to that. So when you're presenting a successful SMART goal, for instance, you're saying, because we met this, that created the opportunity for these things to happen, and that should lead back to one of the company's main objectives. And so I think for you, and I think that's a very fair question, and we get it all the time, but it's really up to us as marketers, and we can certainly have a private conversation on this specific to your company. But let's tie our marketing activities back to what the company's trying to do. That could be a new product launch in 2021. That could be any number of things. We're really trying to break through on D2C marketing. Again, fill in the blank, whatever that might be, but let's tie our activities back to that. Changing mindsets are hard. It's no different than the journey that we have to change mindsets with consumers about our products. And you know what? COVID, quite frankly, in both regards, put us in a winning position. I've never seen so many decision makers pay attention to marketing than they had the last 10 months and see it in a different light, and to see you and the work that you're doing in a different light. And I've not seen consumers care. I mean, obviously it's been growing through the years, but really be forced to think about their food in a little bit of a different way. I think they were worried about scarcity. I think they were worried about, their own immunities. And so it really tees us up. I just recorded a keynote yesterday with some other industry leaders, and that topic came up, and we kept using the term silver lining, that COVID has really created a silver lining for our industry and for marketing in our industry. So that will be at the West Coast Produce Expo is one of the keynotes during that. I think that's next week or the week after. I can't remember the dates, but we'll be promoting it. So tune into that. But that kept coming up. And so I don't know that I wish I could just have an answer for you, but it is a series of things that we have to do. But I will say to you, it starts with our understanding of where our company wants to go and needs to go to be successful. And if you're not privy to that information, at some point you're going to hit a roadblock. And so we've got to change the dialogue there. And if you need our help, we're happy to help. So Marcy.
Sorry. Yeah, I would add one thing to that, a very practical talking point when you're put in that position to have that conversation. Oftentimes your stiffest competition is actively marketing. They are reaping some benefits from their marketing efforts. And so kind of build your case and prepare your argument for what you want based on who your management is most frustrated by in the competitive world, who is taking sales, who seems to have a bigger piece of the conversation. And trade publications, or who's showing up in a really big way in other avenues where you're crossing paths. And if they're doing it and it's working for them because they are such strong competition, it's hard to say that it's completely invalid. There must be some value to what they're doing in the marketing space. So
I agree. And the complete opposite to that is, again, what I said, what if we don't, we're kind of left with that. It's what our competition is doing, certainly. But it's also, if we don't show up any differently than here's our product and here's how much it costs, we're going to get beat every time. This industry's changed. This is not a commodity driven industry like it once was. Look at what the products that are on the store shelves. Just look at the value add that's there. So it's, we have to think differently about our space. And that means that we're going to have to change mindsets in many ways. And I do think that that's happening. We see more marketing in this industry than we've ever had. Unfortunately, we don't have quite the amount that we need to really change the impact on society that we're hoping for. All right, Mac, we're just about at our hour.
All right. Yeah, we're at 2:02. I've got 2:02 here. So
Okay.
I know for many folks, we want to be respectful of time. If anyone has any other questions that they want to ask, we can certainly stay on if you want to raise your hand or stay on with us.
Yeah, or definitely just shoot us a message. And again, really excited about, well, thank you again for coming, and just super excited about our next webinar in 2 weeks. We're actually going to host this one on a Wednesday versus a Thursday to try a little bit of different days. Some of you are unable to attend on Thursday. So if you're watching this recording, we are definitely going to switch to a Wednesday and try a different day of the week. And we're excited because we're going to bring on some guest panelists to help us start the conversation around the roles of sales and marketing, because we're going to continue with that quite heavily in 2021, because we believe it's a huge area of opportunity for we can better align sales and marketing in our industry. We're going to have greater success with the things that we're trying to achieve. So I'm excited about that. And I know I got a little private chat, asked me if I was having a beer. Considering this week, that would be very, very possible, but no, that's my iced tea. But we probably all could use one this week. So hang in there, and thank you again for your time and your attention. And hopefully you found some value in this, and we look forward to next time we're together. Have a great day, rest of your week.